Hello world and welcome to episode 25 of The Top Split, where today I'm your host, Alex McKellar, and we are trying something a little different. We're adding some colour to our lives with a little bit of video thrown in. For those of you who are watching this or listening to us, you'll be able to go and check it out on our YouTube and our Twitch channel as well. And I was saying before, it's strange given that podcasting, I should say, is an audio medium, but hey, we thought we'd give it a try and see where we get to. And if we manage to navigate it successfully, we'll run this as a premiere, I think it's called, on Twitch. And if I can figure that out, we'll also be putting it up on the YouTube channel, the Top Split YouTube channel. So it should be a bit of fun, hopefully, and you'll be able to listen, see, and interact with the show in a whole new way. But before we go any further, joining me today for this little experience is the master himself, the earthy racer, Mr. Paul Batey. Welcome, Paul.
G'day, Alex. G'day, everyone.
Welcome. Thanks, mate. Good to have you here. You are no stranger to the Top Split community, of course. Race with us on Friday nights, Saturday nights, and during the week, and we have a bit of a blast, but hopefully we'll get through today. First off, week one of the new season. How have you been enjoying your racing?
I've had a ball. It's been really, really good racing. The changes they've made seems to, I don't know, they've quietened down a little bit of some of the aggressive driving. The car feels better to me. I mean, I'm not the fastest guy anyway, but it seems to be a little bit more intuitive. The force feedback seems to have been improved. So you can, I'm trying to drive with like light hands instead of holding on for dear life, and you can really feel it giving you a clue as to, are you overdoing it? Are you going a bit too fast on this corner? Or, you know, it's really good. That and the damage model is a hoot. I mean, crashes still happen, but it kind of takes the frustration out of it when you just get hit by a bouncing wheel out of nowhere. It's quite funny. I mean, what can you do? And the tyre model seems to have been tweaked a bit. So I mean, generally, from what I've been hearing during races, at the end of races, people have been very vocal about what a fantastic race that was. It's been happening quite a lot.
Yeah, I've certainly enjoyed my experience. I've done a few so far this week, and I concur. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's literally called the beta test at the moment. The beta testing in the skippy category continues with that new damage model that you were mentioning. The hype is real, Paul, from what I've seen. I found it to be a good addition in terms of potentially shifting people's mindsets because, as you say, the rear of the car is no longer potentially the most fragile piece of it. Because the long-time criticism of the category has been that people can, front to rear contact, the guy who's making the contact from behind is the one that drives away. But from my perspective, the damage model is a really good addition.
Well, as someone who brakes earlier than most, I quite appreciate the car behind getting a bit more damage than me. You still get damage in front, but what seems to happen with the punter is that, and I found this because I did this to someone in week 13, it was the merest of touches and the nose falls off, and that costs you a decent whack of time every lap. So it's a real disincentive to, do the old punt to pass maneuver. I haven't actually seen a lot of it. It's been really, really quite cool racing.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing that I have noticed though in week 13, less so this week because I haven't sort of had any contacts yet, but certainly week 13 was a bit of chaos. Is netcode. Now, I don't know what your experience has been, but I was expecting netcode to get better or the contacts, network related contacts to get better in so much as the videos and the stuff that I'd seen, the content that I'd seen on from iRacing that had been released were all about the hitboxes on the car being more realistic with the shape of the car. They were smaller, they were round, they were whatever it was. So you didn't have an object the size of a a 50-cent piece sitting around invisibly something the size of a 10-cent piece, so therefore the contact would be reduced. However, if I recall my own experiences during week 13, and certainly some of the stuff I've seen, whether it be on my stream or other people's streams or whatever, the phantom contacts are not only still there, but that they've almost got a bit more impact,
Um, I haven't noticed it getting better or worse, and I think even netcode is. Well, I mean, we have to deal with netcode more than others living in Australia, I suppose, but because our internet isn't that good. But I generally find with netcode when I watch a replay, yes, it might be netcode, but sometimes it's a long stretch to say those two cars weren't on a course to hit each other anyway. I think it does a pretty good job of estimating it. I think uh, uh, when people blame netcode for accidents, I think that can be a little bit of a cop out because it was going to happen and it just happened invisibly instead of the cars actually touching each other.
Yeah,
So I
don't
don't
disagree.
know.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. I've certainly seen a lot of that, and and reflecting on my own incidents when I have them, I have to take into account, and I do, that very thing that you're talking about, the contact would have happened inevitably. But what I thought I saw more of certainly in week 13, and I'm wondering if the servers were under a lot more pressure with 40 plus cars in each race. There was distinct distance where cars I didn't think were going to make contact. And what would happen in some cases, which got me mostly concerned, was that you would see cars collide, elements of the car fall off, which is hilarious in some respects. But then what you would see is, in our community, we call it the droids coming out and fixing the cars. So you'd see these cars have catastrophic damage, and 5 seconds later, it'd all fly back on and the car would drive away. And as funny as that is, though, I put myself in the context of a legit official race, and I think, well, okay, if that was a phantom contact, the car, on the outside or whatever it was, one of those cars has actually flown off the track. If he's driven away, and it happened to me in week 13, I drove away with no damage from it at all, but I'd be completely thrown off the track, and my race is, competitively speaking, over anyway. And that was the bit that worried me.
I think, yeah, it seems to like the suspension or axles or the bits that stick the wheels to the car, whatever the term is for that. Yeah. They seem to be quite fragile now. If you take a little bit of you can break a wheel off, and I think actually the thing that's changing people's habits might be also that a contact, 4X can. Often you're not going to be able to get that car back to the pits. You won't be able to stagger around, crabbing around. It's a tow, so it's more than ever. It's just not worth the risk of being a bit too aggressive on the track.
Yeah, don't disagree, and I think people will. I don't know. People, I think, have made a genuine adjustment, as we've probably both observed. I wonder how long it's going to last until people get comfortable with it. I had a fantastic race, and you and I were both in it. And I had a race with Edwin Valerino, my favourite friend from Panama, and we did at Summit Point, the better part of the last 2 laps. And when I say the better part, the only bit that we weren't side by side with was through the twisty bits. After we hit the hairpin, he got up the inside both times, and we went through the twisty bits. But from the last corner all the way around to there, we were side by side both laps. Now, he and I have a lot of mutual respect, and we give each other racing room and all the rest of it. But I wonder how much little bit extra people are giving at the moment, and how long that'll last.
Until they work out the
limits of it.
Yeah, I've had some good races going side by side around Summit Point. I can't remember his surname. This guy called Carlos, and we were going side by side even through the twisty bits.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, it's funny. You look at the replay, and yeah, you can easily fit 2 cars there. But when you're in the car driving, it feels like you're an inch away from each other. It
does, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then you look at it, it's like, oh, no, miles apart.
Yeah, exactly. But there's always that imminent threat of your car and parts departing it, right? So,
And I think the other one of the other changes is even though the draft is still probably there from about a second, it's not as strong until it's really. I found like the straight at Summit Point really point 4, point 0.3 seconds you can get the job done. Point 0.4, it's even at point 0.4 it starts getting more 50-50, and that includes being able to hold that turn on the outside as well. So the racing will probably be more about line and pace and corner exit rather than, well, it doesn't matter how I attack this corner because I'm going to be able to catch up 1.2 seconds on the car in front no matter what anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in my mind, it's another string to the bow of strategy in the skips. It really makes you think about, and I talk about it frequently, both in the commentary and just more broadly, whether it's, do I want to be in front on the last lap? Do I want to be behind? And as you say, you can't just guarantee on a lift, a draft to pass. I mean, I did a race with one of the Australian stalwarts in Kevin Henderson earlier in the week, and we were having a conversation. It was funny. I was thinking about it today as I was driving with Edwin, actually, having a conversation without saying any words, just with how we were moving our cars, right? So I'd sit behind him happily, no problems. If he made enough of a small mistake that I had to run, I'd look to go past and he'd lift and we'd pull and we'd go in, right? Similarly with Edwin, until the last 3 laps, I was in front at the start of the 3 laps to go sort of thing. And my dialogue with him changed from, okay, we're going to get away from everyone as best we can, to, okay, I'm taking the inside line into turn 1, race on. No word spoken. We both knew what it meant. But interestingly, in terms of strategy, for example, going back to the Kevin example, the first time that we did it, because we actually did it for 2 races, the first time we did it, he lifted and I pulled in front, but there was a third person, and that person went to go up the inside, outbrake themselves and went off, right? So there's a complicated mix of strategy and stuff, I think, with the skippy, and certainly the changes to the aero affect both the strategy, because it's no longer 100% draft to pass at most tracks, but also something that I was probably pretty critical of last season. It's the one main criticism I had of the last build was what I thought were the aero issues around high-speed corners. I'm thinking about corners where you're going through flat out in 4th and 5th gear, like the kink out the back of Road America or 130R at Suzuka, where, we talk about the tyre model having much less grip at the start and it's on rails at the end. But it didn't matter in some of those corners. You were taking your life into your hand and a lot of risk every single time last season. I feel like they've made a bit of an improvement there.
Yeah, there were a couple of turns there where I'd find myself doing more overcorrecting than I would think. Oh, why is the back just gone? And not just a little, but quite a severe correction to keep the car going straight. And you're just waiting. Have I gone too far? Have I lost the car? Whereas now, it's more if you keep a little bit of throttle down. I mean, you can't go silly, but if you've got a little bit of throttle down, you've still got enough weight going to the front to stop the back end just losing away from you when you're going around the corner.
Yeah,
seems to be great.
Yeah. I think, on the whole, I think this build's been a step in the right direction. I did hear a bit of noise from the F3 folk. I haven't looked too much, but the Formula 3 folk, they've got the new tyre model as well. And I just felt like saying, on behalf of all Skippy drivers, I say you're welcome. I hope you enjoy the benefits of our 6 months worth of beta testing. Every time you crash, I'm sure I'll be sending out the Wambulance to stick a band-aid on your owies. I think we've done. We've had a lot of fun along the way, but I think we've done a pretty good job in testing them.
Yeah, I think the first season they rolled it out. It was a huge change to the way the car drove, and it just didn't feel right. It felt like it was on rails, and if you stepped a millimetre off the rail, the car was gone no matter what, and there was nothing you could do to recover it. And I think this season is kind of, it feels almost a bit more like the before the tyre model in some ways, that you've got a lot more leeway. And something I noticed on a couple of turns is, even if it's a bit slidey, and I look up at the Delta and I haven't lost time. So it says to me, well, now this is a car that suits different sorts of driving styles. People can go in more aggressively and slidey, and it would be as good as going in nice and smooth but slower. And it's going to be interesting racing for different drivers now.
Yeah, and I think the work that they've done, and they certainly talked about it particularly on some of the more high-performance cars where the tyre will degrade and drop away. And I know we've always talked about the Skippy not having any issues with that. You can overheat them and all the rest of it. But I do feel like, and I did a time trial earlier today where I hit a peak part-way through, and I couldn't match it, whether that was my own concentration, it wasn't, or whether it was the tyres, placebo effect, or whatever it was. I felt like for the last, 15% of the stint, which previously you'd be getting your best times in, I couldn't improve. I couldn't even reach my best time that I had previously. So it'd be interesting to see what they've done there and how it plays out during the season once we get more miles under our belt,
Yeah, you just reminded me of something there, because the old Skippy, the old tyre model, that had a real issue with overheating tyres, where it would just feel like at some points in some races, it would feel like you're driving with a bouncy castle or marshmallow or something, or soap on each wheel. And I used to think, I've forgotten how to drive this car. Why can't I drive this car anymore? And it's halfway through a race and you just panic.
Yeah.
Whereas now I haven't noticed any real effect from car tyres getting too hot. I don't know if I've driven it hard enough, or but they definitely don't go off like that anymore.
No, I don't disagree. I don't notice it so much during a race, but certainly in the time trial that I did, and the only thing I had to judge by was the Delta. So it's only one sample so far as well, and as I said, it could just have been A, a placebo, or B, my concentration dropping off. So I was thinking about it while I was doing it. I think that's probably why I've stayed in the Skippy so long, in addition to many other things, is that races are short enough for me to lot lose my attention.
Is that your excuse for me beating you in the time trial?
Yeah, that is. That's absolutely my excuse. All right. So now we're going to look to take advantage of this new medium that we're trying. I thought initially we'd try to look at some iRacing content from the Twitch community. So I trolled through the most popular clips for the last month on Twitch to see what people were focused on. So let's dive in. Paul, I've sent you through the ones. So we're going to look at the first one. Let me just tee it up now. We'll have a look at this one now for the viewers at home. We'll just run through it.
Okay, send.
So what we're looking there as a pretty classic incident at one of the corners at Road America. But what we are noticing, by the way, I should credit, that's Covals, Covals on Twitch. He was racing in what looked to be a GTE category there. And the big ticket item there was the F1 driver of Max Verstappen. He was in the race and there was a bit of an incident there. I thought before we talk about that, we take a look at a slightly different view of it from one of the guys that was in the same race. Let's go and have a look. So we're coming down, the first long straight down into the hairpin here. We've got the two cars in front, including Verstappen. He's taken a tight line on the inside. The drivers look to go in underneath him, and Max has covered off. Some would say cheeky. Some would say pure defence. And then Max has essentially gone through and taken out the driver in front. Now, one thing before we discuss that, check old mate Dennis. Let's just watch this again, right? I want you to, and I'll fast forward to the bit in question if I can find it. Right, so we're at the incident now. Watch old mate Dennis and his reaction. Look how excited he is at passing Max Verstappen.
Well, This is the first thing that springs to mind, is it? I mean, obviously, you would think that a lot of people that are doing sim racing are fans of motorsport to some degree.
Yeah.
And how cool is it that you can be in a race with an F1 driver,
Yeah.
or there's been V8 drivers? That just tells you, and they're doing it for fun. Like you see Lando Norris,
Yeah.
like every weekend he's not doing Grand Prix, he's on iRacing.
Yeah, that's right. I was just stunned at oh mate, and I should credit him as well. It's that channel is PRT_Diesel on Twitch. That was Dennis there. What stunned me was, now I had one opportunity at last season, and it was after the Spa 24-hour or the 12-hour event. I can't remember which duration it was, where Max Verstappen famously raced in that and racked up 1 million incidents. And then his license went down to D1, and shortly thereafter, or D0 if it goes that low, shortly after he was straight into the skippies, getting his safety rating back up, so I guess he could race the GT cars again. And I had the chance to race with him, and I was shattered because I 1x both my quali laps. Otherwise, I would have been, there was Hendrickson in there, Verstappen, and it would have been me in second or third, probably third. And but then I'm stuck at the back of the grid, so I missed out my chance. I was gutted. I was probably never going to beat him or anything like that, but just to have that opportunity to race with him would have been awesome. And then I couldn't help laughing at old mate Dennis in that clip. He's just gone past Max Verstappen and he didn't even bat an eyelid.
Nothing. Stone.
Deadpan.
Stone. Oh, I'd be jumping out the chair. I'd be dining out on weeks for that. But yeah, I mean, that was young Verstappen there. It was a bit of I've seen worse incidents, but he just went in a little bit hot, bless him.
Yeah, well,
bit more practice, Max, and he'll get the hang of it.
Well, I actually think that I don't know if it was that incident or another one, but I think he might have copped a 2-week ban because certainly that one was pretty blatant. But I don't want to speak out of school because I haven't confirmed it, but I think he did cop a ban out of that one. Now, speaking of F1 drivers, you mentioned him as well. Our next clip is Mr. Lando Norris. Let's go check that one out. We see Max sitting on the grid here, and he's just taken off.
This is bullcrap.
And he's missed the start. Look at that. Who goes in front of him? It's Verstappen.
Look, you and your
on the radio.
Cheat softwares,
No.
They're better than my real life starts.
That is true. I think that was better than your one in Spa.
So there you go. That was better than his start in Spa. You know what struck me about that one, Paul, is you've got two of the new generation of F1 drivers, as you say. They're on the sim. They're out with us out there on track. Got a bit of humour in it, in so much as the week before that was obviously at Spa, where Max had his big incident and he missed the start entirely. But I was really impressed. Apart from Lando's Rossi gear that was quite lairish, he was able to have a laugh about it,
Yeah, it seems to be good spirit. Some real life a little bit more shirty than others, but those two young guys seem to be. I'm not going to mention any names, but well, they do. I mean, they race hard and they're aggressive, but then a lot of people are, and it's just I find it interesting the way that if you're a good race driver, you're also going to be good at iRace. The skills, there's so many skills that are transferable between the two of them, and they. Racing's racing, isn't it? They're obviously getting a kick out of it. They're getting the biggest thrill in the world driving those real life Formula One cars around, and they're getting that. Still scratching at some sort of racing itch that they have to sit down in front of a computer and a wheel and go at it.
Yeah, well, I always think back to when I had the fortunate experience of talking to Marcus Ambrose on the podcast, and he said it's 80%. He had his simulator going. He had the VR and the motion sim, and he said, it's 80% like the real thing. These guys are obviously not hurting their muscle memory and all the rest of it that they use to race with in real life by doing this, which speaks a lot to the sim. Just quickly looking at the next one, another Lando one.
But
Look here,
Gabs,
let's
thanks
have
for
a look.
T1.
This was interesting.
Yeah, when I see Kimmy's on board, it's understandable that he was annoyed. But when you see it from on top and you're on board, you're alongside him the whole way into the corner, but he just wouldn't know you're there because he could only
exactly.
he only saw the Haas.
He had a good start, and then I guess he thought I would never be there anymore. But they break really early, so I just braked a bit later, and then I was like
Yeah.
halfway, like alongside him.
But it
And then I
looked
was
like
like,
he
okay, well,
kind of
if
saw you were
everybody
there.
does- Yeah,
He
because
must
then I
have
was
done
like,
because he
okay, if
kind of
everybody
looked like
does the line,
yeah.
it's fine. But then suddenly I saw him like turning in because he didn't know I was there. So I tried to avoid it, but I was almost in the wall in the inside.
Yeah. It was kind of unlucky that the your friend's
Yeah, it's-
suspension broke.
So there you go. That was, I thought, a fascinating insight. You've got, again, Norris and Verstappen talking through that incident at Spa. Now, part of me wonders, they both know that they're live on the internet, right? But it's
It
not.
seemed pretty natural, though, didn't it?
It did. It wasn't like an interview. It was, and
Oh, the interview. It wasn't media saying, "Oh, I haven't seen the incident" or anything like that. They're actually discussing it. What's interesting about that is that sometimes you can see racing incidents or accidents that happen that clearly look to be the fault of one driver or another. I'm sure I know I've had races where I could swear I could put my house on that it was the other driver's fault, and then I go and look at it and it's actually yeah, it was. So that to me that's what it sounded like. They were the way they were discussing that was I don't remember the actual incident they were talking about, but it seemed to be that they were fairly honest about, well, you can see this or couldn't see this, or going to the corner. It was interesting listening to that because I'm sure when you see horrendous things happen on the TV, a lot of I like to give them the benefit of the doubt, and they weren't intentionally trying to cause any accident or push someone too wide. It's just the way the race went at that time.
Yeah, exactly. It was the start at Spa that they were referring to, that they joked about it as they got off the line when Lando missed his start, but in iRacing. But yeah, so Kimi up the outside, turning into turn one at Spa, and then you had Verstappen, who missed the start, and then coming
Verstappen,
up.
That was an iRacing start. That was just why are all these cars going slow on the left hand side? I could just overtake 10 up here.
But going back to what you were saying about an honest conversation, how much did that sound like conversations that we've all had after races in iRacing?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It did. I mean, two guys just going through what they looked at and how they went and what happened in an incident. And, upon reflection, as you say, that's what it looked like. Such a natural conversation. Again, the sim comes out as so close to reality. It was really interesting.
And I suppose this, no matter what they might say ordinarily in public, the racing drivers wouldn't be able to keep up to that standard if they didn't look at their own incidents and work out what could I have done differently, or what could the other drive, how it happened, instead of just saying, "Oh, not my fault. No, nothing to see here." You have to be honest and look at what you've done, even if it's not your fault. But did I see that other driver coming? Could I have placed my car in a slightly better position to maybe avoid an accident?
Yeah. Look, don't disagree. But interesting that it's all naturally happening with them as well as us. Now, moving on to the next one, we've got a couple to go here. We're going to look at our first Skippy one, because as I was trolling through these ones, the top clips of the month, of course, I was hunting for Skippy ones, and I finally found my first one. This is from now I struggle with his channel name. It's of course those previous ones were from Lando Norris's Twitch channel. It's just Lando Norris, one word if you're looking for it. This one is I think it's pronounced Heiki 360 ES, HEI KKI 360, the number ES. And let's go take a look at this clip now.
Cristian, no lo hagas.
Now, I apologise. It's in Spanish. He started at the back. This is Xavier Sanchez.
Lo ha hecho. Cristian
Is
lo ha
it
hecho.
Watkins
Cristian lo ha
Glen?
hecho. Se viene la monumental. Pasamos de largo. Y que el salto monta world record.
He's having a bit of
World
fun.
record para Iván Echeverría. Increíble. Tenemos nuevo récord del mundo en el Estadio Olímpico.
Oh, what a hero!
He's gone
Adiós,
through
casi me
the,
está.
the
Adiós, no
bus
pasa
stop
nada.
at
Salvamos,
Watkins.
salvamos. Salvamos.
Well,
Perfecto.
He's perfect.
Perfecto,
He's taken
todo
about
controlado.
6 cars. And he's about to go
No, no.
past.
No lo hagas, no lo hagas.
He's squeezing
Por
through a
dentro.
couple more.
Increíble.
And apparently it's incredible.
Santo Dios,
I'm
qué
guessing that's what
despropósito
that
más grande.
means.
Well, that's the sort of reaction you want to see, isn't it? Not just
Well,
sitting there.
Yeah, you know, that was pretty
That was
spectacular.
hilarious.
So I didn't actually do any racing at Watkins, but I know that that's what it's like on the approach into the bus stop. That was at the tail end of last Skippy season, obviously. I love his passion. I've raced with Xavier before. Can I tell you, though, there's a couple of things there. I've talked a little bit recently about the surge in the Iberian, the Spanish community, in the skippies in particular. I'm really pumped about it because it's bringing a lot of guys in, and they're good guys, and it's sort of dispelling the myth around some of the Iberians, and I think that can only be a good thing, right?
Well, I've been punted by people from all over the planet. Iberia's got no. I think because they are aggressive's not quite the right word to use because aggressive can
You know the word I
imply,
use, don't you?
What's that?
They're
Racy.
racy.
Racy, yes. But when you're used to it, and I think it's also when they know you a bit as well, when they've raced against you, then they're not. You're not just an obstacle. Then you can start racing with. I really don't have a. I think it's a big. I think it's a big myth. The whole Iberian thing.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I think it's evident in all communities, as you say, all nationalities. The thing to note that it might appear somewhat anecdotally to be more prevalent there is that outside the US, which is obviously the biggest iRacing community going around, Iberia is the second biggest club in terms of participation on skip barbers. So we see, and it's a large number too. So and it's by a long way. I think Australia and New Zealand might be third or fourth, which is interesting. But one thing the other point I make about Xavier's channel, which is again Heiki, HEI KKI360ES. I don't know what that's about. Is he's got 25,500 followers on Twitch.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. He for an iRacing streamer, that's besides the likes of Matt Malone, I didn't check the numbers on his stream. That's amazing, right? He's partnered on Twitch, and it's just for me, it's getting eyeballs on iRacing, what we love doing,
Well, now you know what you got to do because a bit more passion, Beardy. Because I tell you, a mate of mine watched you race at Bathurst race. For some reason, he likes watching our races. He doesn't himself. And he said, it took me a while to realise that Alex was actually driving a car. It just looked like he was sitting there because you're just so calm. And he goes, no. So,
it made me a bit more passion, a bit more Spanish
pumping and shouting.
Well, he sounded like he was commentating a soccer game to me.
It did, anyway, it was excellent.
Yeah, it was good fun. All right. What set of clips would be complete without a bit of old mate Tyson Meyer, Quirk Tyson? Of course, he's been on the podcast. He's one of my all-time favourite guests, and
Very
he
cool
is
guy.
a very cool guy. Let's go check out what he had going on. Start of an F3 race at Road America, and it's on. And when I say it's on, folks, it's really on.
Come on.
It's like, I think one car out of a 30-car field has survived that. Like, that's...
That's really squeak through. No,
what gets me out of that, though, is Tyson's so experienced that, he didn't even blow up when the world... I could just see himself resigning himself. Well, what am I going to do? There's 30 cars on top of each other at turn one of my race. But that was quite incredible, wasn't it? Quite a stack, you might say.
That was quite a lot of dominoes falling at one time, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. But I had a follow-up one to that as well. The next one is actually him looking at it, reviewing it after the race, with a special surprise at the end. Let's have a look at that one now.
Okay.
So Tyson, we're just watching Tyson with a static camera. And, oh my gosh!
Oh, what do you do, eh?
Oh, and he's having a good
this-
giggle about it, right? It looks like he's finished fifth in the end anyway. But then, look, it just pops in the chat, the top right-hand corner.
Oh, shit.
Oh, Nim!
Nim.
Nim Cross, the iRacing
It's
steward,
good.
it's just popped in. And Quirk's hit exit stage left.
Oh, dear, oh, dear.
Oh, that was good fun. So
I had a race against Nim the other day. He likes the skippies.
he does.
And He's one of the many curses I have. I've got the 10-15 race.
Yes.
I've got racing with you or Ben Snell. I always crash.
Yeah.
And every time I've been in about 3 or 4 races with Nim, and I always die
Yeah.
or get hit, and I've got to stay far away from the microphone button. But I finally did him good and proper. But,
Well, you know, there's an award for that, don't you? If you
yes,
go check your profile,
check straight away.
It's I let you win award. I beat someone from
all over
iRacing.
that one.
So look,
I mean, that's the kind of guy you want looking after. I mean, he must get so many frivolous or questionable, protests coming his way. But from that guy's history, he's just a guy that is really interested in having this run as smoothly and as fairly and as entertaining for people as possible. He's a real asset to iRacing, that guy.
I could not agree more. And I know a lot of people can be critics or have a lot of criticism for the protest system and the adjudication and stuff. If you haven't already, folks, go listen to the podcast episode that I did with Nim. He explains how it all works really, really well. And it certainly clarified a lot of that sort of stuff for me. But I wanted to focus on what you said out of that. I don't think there's a better ambassador for iRacing than Nim Cross Jr. He's raced with me a number of times. I mean, he came on the podcast. I barely had to do anything more than say, "Hey, Nim, would you like to come on?" He was there. He was invested and present, in the conversation. He goes in the community. They've got a community ambassador, but I stick to my little patch of the iRacing world, but I don't really see the community manager that they've engaged. But who I do see is Nim Cross Jr. He's in Twitch.
I didn't know they had one.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure they've got one. I heard about one a while ago, but I'm assuming that's the case. And you see him in places like that, and people know who he is. People know that he's a straight up guy, and I think he's, I reached out to him when we had the donut stuff going on in the skips, and I said, "Hey, did you want to come and talk about it?" And he said, "Look, happy to come on the show, but I want to focus on positive stuff." He wasn't really, he was all about maintaining. Look, and it wasn't a thing from hey, it's my job. From a business perspective, it doesn't look good. It was, hey, as an individual, I want to remain positive, and I'm okay with that. And I'd love to have him back on the show at some point because I think he's a great guy. Oh, I'm going to sneeze here in a minute if I'm not careful. Oh, hang on, no. Oh, no, we're good. I think. No. Anyway, so look, great job from Nim to be part of the community, but I thought that was a funny way to look at it as well. Now, I've got one final clip before we move on, and now I will give a language warning. I forgot to give one before Tyson's clip. It is in Spanish. It's our mate Xavier again, but for the Spanish listeners who. There probably aren't terribly many. just be aware. There's a bit of a language warning in there. For the rest of us, it should be okay. So let's go and have a look at this one. And I've got the volume down a bit. What we're seeing is a tyre. It's all about the new damage model. There's a tyre hitting and turning the skippy. But he's looking at the replay now, and he's basically saying, this is like Mario Kart. Look at this. And you got a car up the inside, it gets rear-ended, and a tyre flicks out, and it bounces off 3 cars and causes the car on the outside to spin. How about that?
Where else would the tyre go?
But here
That
it's
seems fair enough.
ping-ponged off 3 cars.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
like
made of rubber, isn't it? It's bouncy.
I thought that was fascinating though, because a lot of people were worried that the car, the stuff was flying off. You get hit in the virtual face or whatever. Imagine doing VR with that. Have you had that experience?
I've had a few bits. I haven't had a wheel fly at me yet, but I've had a wing and a nose cone, and you kind of duck out the way.
I can imagine, but I wouldn't have thought that a flying wheel like that would have had that much of impact. I don't know if it would in real life. Maybe it would, but it turned the car around, and I got a bit of a laugh out of it. But that really does show that they've done a bit of work on the tyre model and on the damage model, and it's right in play now for this season, wouldn't you say?
I think so. I was thinking before the season started how frustrating will this damage model be, because it looks pretty, bits and pieces flying off cars, but as far as racing, you've got to be so much more careful looking after your car for the duration of the whole race. Little accidents can write you off. You can't get the car back to the pits. You can't crab around as much. So it's a tow. So there's 2 minutes. Your race is done. But having said that, there are sometimes a lot of races you can end up with, like, there's 2 races going on at the same time. You've got all the ones on the lead lap, and if there's been a big incident with 3 or 4 cars, they're all still racing each other a lap down. So there's still something to go for. The damage model, I find it very satisfying the way it's not predictable, because before now, the typical, you would get a bit of a damage on your front wing and the rear wing, and you drive around, it always looked the same. Or you're steering a B at 45 degrees if you're unlucky. Whereas now there's a lot more variety in the way the cars look when they're damaged, and the way they handle as well, if they handle at all, if they're not stuffed.
Yeah, look, it's going to be interesting this season to see what sort of impact it has on the results and people's driving style. And I think, as we've said already, it's already having a bit of an impact. Now, it wouldn't be a Top Split podcast without a little conversation about Sunday Night Lights. We are at the tail end of week 1, so it is kicking off this weekend for season 18. I thought I'd just go back and quickly, I'm going to cut over and have a look at the scoreboard for last season. I'll flick you a link, mate, so you can. I don't know if you can look at it or not.
I don't want to look at that scoreboard from last season. It's old news.
All right, fair enough.
That was the other curse I had. Sunday nights.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Every night.
So congratulations! I've just got the score sheet up on the picture at the moment. Sammy J. Toykala taking out by so much. He also took out the official season overall too, with a massive point score, over 2,000 points in the official standings, which is incredible. I've only seen that a few times before. Tim Hendrickson,
expected T Milo driver. That's the cream of the crop, really, as far as skippies go.
That's right.
Well done, Sammy.
Tim Hendrickson in P2, Anthony Catt from UK&I in P3, Lee Anderson, his compatriot, in P4. We saw top 5 was the highest we could get, with your other Team Milo compatriot there, Ben Snell, for the leading ANZ driver. Other points of note: 3 wins in the top split to Hendrickson, Toykala and Gourlay. Gourlay only managed to P6, didn't really parlay those victories into an overall result. Leading Iberian driver, once again, Cristobal Otero Roman. Great supporter of the Iberian community, he is, and he comes out to support our series as well. The other thing that I thought I'd note was Mitchell McLeod. He won 2 races in the second split this season, but didn't look. He had some great races in the top split when he cracked it, but we were a victim. Well, he was a victim of some of the success that we had in the season, because it was our best season for participation overall. And I've got some of the stats on the screen at the moment. Top split averaged 4,457 strength of field.
Crazy.
Well, can I tell you, the last couple of weeks dropped off as people lost interest in the final results, as drop weeks and everything sort of played up. But before that, we'd averaged 4,600 for the entire season, which is crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, there was, even when, I had midway through the season, I think I got my I rating up to around about 3,000. There was one week on a Sunday night, that was the third split.
Oh, really?
Yep. Third split.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Look, it's what we're aiming for, to get people out on track, get quality racing. And, that was, can I say, it was a big success from my perspective, the move to Sunday night. And the people came back this season. The first season, of course, we did it the new tyre model or the new tyre model, and it wasn't popular and everyone left. And then we had the new tyre model last season, and we had a bunch of people flood back, which was great. This season, I'm hoping we can build even more. Starting as you and I are doing this, it's tomorrow night, but it's Sunday, the 15th of September at 9:15 p.m. Australian Eastern Time, GMT plus 10 at the moment until daylight savings kicks in. So that's season 18 coming to life as of this weekend. We start at Summit Point, as you and I have been talking about. So it's a free track. New damage model, should be a good turnout, I think, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's fun because all of those guys you mentioned, they're all a second or two quicker than me. They're just out of my league, but I've raced against most of them in some races, so it's really good. It's really cool to see all of them in the same race together, to see who's the best of the best. Because it's hard to tell sometimes if you've just got two or three in a race, they're going to win. They're going to beat me every day. But who's the best out of the best? I'll tell you my tip. I've got a tip for this season.
All right.
I'm expecting big things of Mr. Snell.
Good.
I think he had a bit of trouble with the spins last season, but I think
I thought that was on the Team Milo run sheet.
No. I think Russell Clark got me in the team so he could beat someone, and I ended up getting more points than him last season. So that was unfortunate, Russell. But because he knows how to drift, and there's a you can catch the skippy a lot better. We did a league race on Friday night, and he was miles ahead of second and third.
And that was starting from the back too. So,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he started at the back of the grid, didn't qualify, and drove through it. So, yeah, look, I did a race with him at Summit Point earlier in the week, and again, he, not through choice that time, he made a mistake in quali, and he drove through the field, and I was lucky that he didn't catch me, to be honest. I started up front and finished just ahead of him, only because he ran out of laps, because he had... I think he's got at least a couple of tenths on me, 2 or 3 possibly, which in the calibre of field that you see on a Sunday night, if I was competing, it's night and day. The guys there are that quick. So, look, I'm hoping that he does well. He's been the leading ANZ driver for a while now and been a strong supporter of the community. So, looking forward to another enjoyable season overall, but for Ben as well.
Looking at the track lineup, I mean, I'll probably say this every season, but it's mouth. What's going to happen over the next 12 weeks? There's some really nice tracks there. There's the new Barcelona track is going to be in there as well, which I haven't. I've watched other people. I've watched you race it. It really looks like a nice, good flowing circuit, really suited for a skippy.
Yeah, I agree.
Doesn't outstay its welcome. You've always got a little bit to do, but. No, really good. Because last season, all the tracks, a lot of the tracks were American tracks. It's a bit more mixed this season, I think.
Yeah, but, the Catalonia track, I did race it in week 13, and it was look, it's a long track for a skippy. It's a full GP circuit, but I thought it sat really well with the skip. You didn't feel like it was a long lap like you can at some of the GP circuits. So, yeah, looking forward to that round indeed. And to another enjoyable season, and of course our here at the Top Split TV community supporting the skippy community more broadly with the broadcast each and every Sunday night. Well, folks, that might do us for this special edition. If I can manage to pull it all together, perhaps we might even do it again. Maybe even do it live. You can see there's a little space underneath Paul's photo or video on the screen at the moment for more of a forum-based approach. I nearly had the doctor in the house this evening too, but he was going off to watch the footy, so it was. Maybe next time. We'll see how we go. So assuming I can push all the right buttons, this will be aired on the Top Split TV Twitch channel. As I said, it'll be posted on the Top Split YouTube channel. And, of course, the audio version will be in all the usual places like iTunes and the like, as well as on the topsplit.com website. For now, Paul, though, we did it. Thank you for being part of my first multimedia episode of the Top Split. It's been great having you here, mate.
It's been a lot of fun. Nice to test it all out. You can get some decent people.
Oh, please. But who knows? It might be the first or the last, or maybe there'll be more to come. We'll see. Any place that people can check you out? Anything that you're doing that you like to draw attention to?
Not
I know
really.
you used to do a
you
bit
can
of
just see me
streaming.
on track down the back somewhere. That's that'll do. But
Very good.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun, this iRacing lark, and it's nice to find. I mean, the beautiful thing about the skip is any time of the day you can get a race. It's a great fun little pastime. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I've enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, Alex.
No, that's been good. Thanks, mate. That's been awesome. Oh, wrong button. Oh, I had to hit one button eventually that was wrong. There we go. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and all the usual things you do on the socials, as it really does help us to promote this great hobby that we love. But until next time, on behalf of Paul Batey, I've been your host, Alex McKellar, and you've been listening and maybe watching the Top Split. Ciao for now.